Greetings, race community. Brent coming in live from Oceanside, California after a great Thanksgiving week. I hope everybody got a little bit of R&R adjusted, though it may have been this year. And we are recording today's episode on Giving Tuesday. You'll probably hear it a couple of weeks after. But I am privileged to welcome Beth Crigler, who serves as the Associate Vice Chancellor for Development at UNC Charlotte. Welcome, Beth.
Well, thank you, Brent. I wish I were coming from sunny California. I'm coming from somewhat sunny North Carolina, but happy to be with you.
Yeah. Hey, I think on the spectrum of things, North Carolina weather is nothing to shake a stick at. So
it's
hopefully
not
you're
quite California, but it's pretty good.
Fair enough. Well, look, we look forward to hosting you, and you have an interesting background with some twists and turns along the way in your advancement journey, spending time outside of higher education, inside of higher education. And so I'm very much excited to learn more about your journey and specifically what you're looking forward to as you continue to advance in your role at UNC Charlotte. But why don't you just give us a quick background, where you grew up, who you were. I love hearing our guests' own higher education journeys and sort of what led you to the University of South Carolina.
Yeah, so I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, which is the home of the Gamecocks. I am the oldest of 5 girls, and I have a long family history at South Carolina, but my father passed away when I was in high school. And South Carolina was not really on the radar screen for me at the time because I wanted to move out of the city. And I felt like after that happened, being the oldest, it would be better for me to be in, at least in the same city. Thankfully, I had great family support that I didn't tell my mother that's what I wanted, but my uncle stepped in and said, hey, you can go to school there if you want, but you're going to live on campus. So in my mind, I thought I'll be here for 1 year and then I'll transfer, and you probably could not have pulled me out of there with a crowbar. It was the happiest, time of my life. Great decision. So I did grow up in Columbia. I moved to Charlotte right after college, and I've been here.
I just got to ask, oldest of 5 girls. I mean, any real highlights or just crazy stories that you can share that you feel comfortable sharing with our audience?
I am 12 years older than my youngest. And so I started college when she started kindergarten. And there were, other than lots of fights over clothes primarily, I remember coming home one day and my mother had put a padlock on her closet door because one of us would always go in and, inevitably find the most expensive pair of shoes or sweater or something that she would have to go find stuffed in a locker in our school or something. So I do remember lots of that. We're all very close. We all live within we're all in North Carolina and South Carolina. So lots of nieces, nephews. My husband is one of 4 boys and we have 2 girls. So we knew there was no, it was going to be a single sex.
Wow.
Keep going and we were going to have more girls.
Well, I'm one of 3 boys and my wife is one of 3 girls and we have 3 boys. So yeah, her whole world has sort of been turned upside down, I think.
Yeah. So it was fun though. Definitely a great time.
And I imagine, sort of tragic circumstances, but being able to stay near your siblings during college had to be fun as well. Did they ever get to come to campus and hang with Beth? Or
so occasionally they did, but there were a few phone calls that I recall getting when they were all in high school that my mom might have been somewhere out of town and they hosted a party that got a little out of control. So it was more that, oh gosh, what do we do? Mom's going to find this out. Help us, sort of things. But it was awfully fun.
And so you ended up studying marketing and finance at South Carolina. Is that something you expected going in?
I did. I always felt like I would be some sort of business major, and that just sort of suited me well. And right out of college, I got recruited to work for what is now Nations Bank, was then North Carolina National Bank in Charlotte. I was only there I was there for, gosh, not much more than 2 years and loved it, but got recruited to Charlotte Latin School, which is a private TK through 12 school into fundraising. They had a new assistant headmaster, and a friend of mine was going to be their alumni person. And he said, hey, I'm looking for someone young and outgoing that I could mold into fundraising. And he was pretty persistent. He kept calling me about a job, and I was like, I don't know anything about fundraising. I'm not interested. I canceled meetings with him a couple of times and finally couldn't come up with an excuse not to go to lunch. He was extremely persuasive, which is usually good fundraisers are. I accepted the job that I did not know I was applying for over lunch. Took the job as a gift officer. I think they even gave me the term director of development. I'm not sure why or how. I was 24 years old at the time. Took the job and didn't love it. The first couple of weeks, I was like, oh gosh, this is awful. I'm going to have to ask people for money. I mean, I don't know what I've done. And I called my boss at the bank, who happened to be a parent at Charlotte Latin School. And I said, look, I know I'm breaking every etiquette rule as this good Southerner that there is, but if you haven't filled my position, I'd love to have it back. And he was great. And he said, Beth, I will take you back at any time, but you've not given this a fair shot. He said, we'll put a date on the calendar 6 weeks from now. And if you still want to come back to the bank, I'll bring you back. And in that 6 weeks, I was in love.
So in a certain regard, it couldn't have started worse. I mean, let's be honest.
It couldn't have.
You take the new job, you're really sold on it. What do you think it was? I mean, did you even know what the work entailed when you accepted the position?
No idea. I bought his vision of, we're going to do all of these grand things, and we're going to make all of these, make this great impact. We're going to build all these new buildings. There's this great, thing to do. And I'm, it's a great profession. I'm going to teach you. You're going to learn from me. And I bought it. I had no idea what it was. And then when I got to the office and realized I might have to sit with someone and ask for money, I didn't know how to do it. And I thought, gosh, that sounds awful. And
no training, no coaching, just get thrown into it.
But it was awesome. My first gift was a $25,000 ask, and they said yes. I did it by myself, and I was hooked from there.
Were you nervous? What was that like? Take me back to that first ask. What did you say?
So I was a nervous wreck. I had learned, I'd probably only been on the job a couple of weeks, but I had learned what a gift pyramid was. We had a start of a campaign. We had a project we were funding. So we had put together a gift chart. I was going to lunch. I still remember Michael Rankin was the donor's name. And my boss was coming to lunch with us as well. This was before cell phones. And we were driving separately, sitting in the booth at the restaurant, just trying to make small talk. And the waiter walked up. I was not married then. I think I was engaged. And I was like, are you Miss Derrick? And I said, I am. He said, well, I have a message from Mr. Battle, and he's not going to be able to join you all today, and would like for y'all to go ahead. And I thought, oh my God. I mean, I thought I might throw up. I didn't know what to do, what to say. We continued through lunch, made small talk, and I pulled out the little packet that we had put together. This is what we wanted to do. And I got to the gift pyramid page. And I don't know if Michael felt sorry for me or what it was, but he reached across the table and he pointed to the $25,000 block and he said, we'll do this. And I do remember as plain as day. And I went, you will? Like, oh my gosh, like really? Wow. That's awesome. And then it became that, I don't know that many people get that shot first. That's your first ask, is something that big. And I think it's also great when you're working for an independent day school, you have a collection of committed parents. So it was an easy introduction to fundraising and asking people. So we had incredible success. That was my love of major gifts. And I never looked back. I mean, I was hooked. I was sold on campaigns and major gifts. Then I just had to learn exactly how to do it.
It is so neat when people have such poignant memories of their first ask, of their first gift. Let me contrast that with how you would approach that meeting today, and how many times you've now been through that discussion. It's got to feel a little bit, I don't know, is it easy now? Do you still get nervous now? I mean, how would you approach it today versus that nervous wreck in the booth who can't believe her boss is not showing up for lunch?
I know. So a couple of things I would say now, I wouldn't say it's really nervousness. I would say there's excitement. I think still today, there are butterflies that have, gosh, this is something you've planned for, you've worked on, what might happen. I love that. I love that feeling. I don't know if it's what an adrenaline junkie has of jumping out of an airplane or what it is, but you like that excitement. Then it was pure nervousness. But I will say that the one thing my boss, what he did for me, he was a big believer in, we didn't role play per se of, talking it out, but he did always make me come in and he said, okay, tell me what Michael is going to be thinking. Put yourself in the place of the donor. What are they going to ask you? So we didn't role play, but we had to think, okay, if I were Michael and you were asking me for this, this is what I would want to know. And before, in training, before those guests, that's what we did. So it wasn't, I had to come in and pretend to be this person, but I had to come in and say, we're going to ask John Smith for this today. And I think this is what John's going to ask me. And this is why I think he's going to ask this. So to this day, I still am always thinking, okay, step out of my box and into theirs, and what might I want to know. So that was it was great training.
Do you have any experiences where, I'm always interested in calibrating the ask, and there's certainly some research that we have at our disposal, but ultimately there's just a lot of discretion in what you could ask someone to consider, in what somebody's capable of doing, depending on their level of interest and enthusiasm for a specific initiative. Do you have any instances that you'd be willing to share where you were just way off, or where the kind of alignment of maybe what you thought was possible and what the donor was prepared to entertain were just completely off base? Because sometimes we can learn from those examples as well, and no worries if nothing comes to mind.
Well, no, I can think of instances where we're off in both places, right? Where you're asking for too large of an amount, and when you've asked for too small. I think when you really live in the major gift world and principal gifts, transformational gifts for a long time, oftentimes the ask is very apparent because you're talking about the problem you want to solve and how it's going to be solved. So often the donor knows what that's going to cost, what that's going to be. Now I think I can think of times of recovering, if we say it's going to cost $1 million to do this, and they go, oh gosh, gosh, that's not something I can do. I hope you didn't think I could do that, or that's more than I was thinking. Being able to say, well, who else can help us do this? How together, what else can we bring in? What other, is there a foundation, the corporation, the company you work for, another alum, whoever it might be. But, I always talk to our team about, we've got all of this intelligence, right, of what we think wealth screening might be. And I would say you believe that to guide you in where you might want to start your, who I'm going to go call because I've got all these people. Well, I'm going to start with those that might wealth screen at the highest, but that's never the right answer. It's right. An exact answer.
So really the advice would be, let's frame it through the impact that we want to achieve, the cost of that impact, and then we can start to navigate what portion of that pie might a given donor be interested in sort of accounting for, and then how can we work collaboratively with that prospect to maybe identify other ways to solve the problem.
I think most of our donors, if not all, do want to have an impact, right? They want to make an impact. Some can be influenced by what their name's going to be on, and how big a lights, what size of a building, what size of a program. That does motivate some, but not everyone. And even those that are motivated by that could give anywhere. So they're giving to make a difference. So if you start with, here's what we need, here's how you can help us, here's the problem we're trying to solve, we're trying to make the community better, we're trying to make our university better, we want student success, whatever it is, then this is what it is. Where can you play? What role do you want to play in this?
So it's a little bit of like that first donor who picked the spot in the pyramid where they wanted to be. There's an element of that at a project level, not just a campaign level.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's lots of discussion. Universities are often, if you're not in a campaign, you're planning for one. But I do think there's something to be said for universities that are getting out of these big comprehensive campaigns, and you're in project-driven fundraising, that it's always, because it's what you're doing. Even in these big comprehensive campaigns, I don't know many people, you've got your pillars of, we want to do this in faculty support, and this is student success, and we're there, we're not going to take more because we've raised that 100 million or billion, whatever it is. Sorry, you might be interested in scholarship, but we really want we need professorships, whatever it is. So it's
right
what the donor wants anyway, what their interest is.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the donors that you've worked with. You made the move to a healthcare organization, and you spent almost 9 years in the healthcare fundraising world. What was the catalyst to do that? What was it like? Any just observations of the similarities and big differences from the higher ed or even K-12 private sector?
There are a lot of similarities. I will tell you, when I started, again, I was just sort of recruited by this charismatic person. Hey, we need your help. I started in kind of a consulting fundraising role, not really understanding why hospitals and healthcare systems needed philanthropy, right? Their, insurance pays, they're always making big dollars, physicians are paid a lot. Why do you need financial support? And really, I think that a lot of the community at large feels that way. What's really special, I think, about healthcare fundraising is that grateful patient experience. So I've gone through, or a family member has gone through, a life-changing health event, and the outcome could have been good. And then I'm very grateful, and I want to help someone else going through this that's less fortunate, or the outcome wasn't what we wanted, and now I want to honor my loved one in some way. And I've had lots of people tell me that I've worked with over the years, I probably ask faster than most people. I often tell some of the people who work for me, or when I make presentations, people with the ability to give don't often need more friends. They're not meeting with us just because they like us. They know why we're there and what we want to do. So I do ask kind of fast, but in a healthcare situation, when you're with someone who's going through a traumatic experience, your relationship deepens very quickly. And, you're often at their bedside when a loved one is dying or when they're at their worst. So you feel really close. So getting to the point of, you want to help us do this, this is how we do it, it just naturally occurs. I loved being able to support families in that position. So it was a great experience. I will tell you that people in higher ed don't always realize, we think we're really unique and very different, and no one else is like us. And when I was looking at making the move to UNC Charlotte, I did have a lot of people question, well, gosh, you've not been in higher ed, and you're going to take a really big position. It's very different. And you've never worked with deans and, what they think and how they think. And I would always say, well, have you ever worked with a neurosurgeon? I mean, I'm not sure there's a smarter person in the room ever. but it's the same. Health, higher ed, we've got College of Business, College of Health and Sciences, colleges of, whatever, education. Healthcare is set up the same way. You've got cancer, you've got pediatrics, you've got cardiovascular, and you've got leaders of each, and you've got physicians in each that might be much like your faculty members are. There's a great annual giving opportunity. There's great gift capacity. I would say, and most of my colleagues in higher ed probably don't want to hear me say this, I think higher ed's a little easier because there's a ready-made group of alumni that have a passion for, often have a passion for where they went to school. And healthcare, you've got to sell that a little more. Not everyone understands it inherently. So, but a lot the same.
And as you reflect on that period, my understanding is you did work with some uniquely high-profile philanthropists in the area. Does anybody come to mind?
So I am very proud of, and it was a great experience to work with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, obviously, greatest of all time. As a lot of people, I guess we can debate LeBron James or Michael Jordan, whoever is the GOAT of basketball. He owns the professional basketball team in Charlotte, and Novant Health, where I worked, we were the healthcare provider. So there is a natural partnership already. And our CEO was having conversations with Michael and about, we're always trying to raise money, trying to, support different initiatives. And he made the comment, oh, well, I would be interested in entertaining a gift. And it took a long time. And I will say it is definitely the hardest gift I ever closed, but not because working with him was delightful with his team. He works with the Rockefeller Foundation. And so he had great counsel, great care. This was really before he was, he's now given some incredible gifts across the country and really, I think, thinking about his legacy and doing very impactful things, but those weren't as prevalent or well known when we were working on this gift. And, I think the hospital at first thought about, you naturally think of sports and orthopedic and, people get hurt and injured and this is his life. This is where he's made all of this money. This is where we ought to structure a gift. And we met with Michael's team a lot, but we met with his team the first time and we made the pitch for something that you did not have to have been in fundraising very long to be able to read the room and know that this was not something that was resonating with them. So stopping the conversation, flipping the conversation of what would you like to see? What would Michael like? What his passion was and what he wanted was helping children and helping families. And it's hard sometimes to have free clinics. It's not always the best for the community, but it's an expensive, helping uninsured, it's an expensive venture for the hospital. But I learned this from another boss that I had, but she would always, if someone said a word, family, children, love, whatever it was, every time that the dinner or whoever you were talking to said that word, she'd put a little tick mark beside it. So when you finish the conversation, well, if they said the word family 35 times in an hour conversation, then by gosh, that was really important to them. And that those words, and it wasn't just family or love, it could have been, awesome or whatever it was they said, we made sure that those words were given back to them in the form of a proposal. But we knew what he would be interested in, but really getting that program together. So we had to sell internally. How could we do this? What can we do? How could we offset costs? What is it? It was non-traditional. And so it was getting the healthcare system to find it was all the same problem, but what he wanted and how we could do it took a long time to come together. So it was awfully nice to see it. There are two clinics, comprehensive clinics in Charlotte, in working with some of our most at-risk families, and no longer do they have to go to this doctor for this and get on a bus and go here for this service. Everything's together. So it was really a great experience.
You've referenced his team a couple of times. So who is Michael Jordan's Scottie Pippen of philanthropy? Like, what is it? What is it like working with a team? What does that mean? And have you dealt with it with other, very high net worth supporters, or is it unique to Michael's situation?
No, I don't think it's unique at all to his situation. Whether it is, lots of our large philanthropists have financial advisors. They may have, often you're dealing with a family office. So you may have an administrator that has a family office because it's two brothers and their children and grandchildren. They're all in a family business. And, some of, your business leaders, as well as any of these athletes or celebrities, they have PR people and communications, and you've got to work through, if it has this the right thing, how is this the right name? How's the name going to appear, with them, then their attorneys. But I don't think that's any different. And I wouldn't even suggest that his is the largest that we've ever worked with. But there is, for him and a lot of others, they may have said, yes, hey, I'm interested. Now you all go figure out how we can do this and then let me see it. And certainly have input and influence, but there were a lot of things we had to work through before then. But I think that happens in a lot of our major guests.
So what does the stewardship plan look like for Michael Jordan?
Well, I left before before the entire stewardship plan, before the buildings were built. But I do think that's often, we were talking about that today with our team, with some major guests. The stewardship plan is as important, right, as the cultivation plan. And so it's easy to think about what is the unveiling ceremony, or what does the press release look like that announces, is there a video that goes with that? And those things, I think most team members, it's like, all right, that's my stewardship plan, but it's what happens 2 months after that. And 3 months after that. And if it's a scholarship plan, is there interaction with how, and I think it's also easy to say, okay, because they made a gift of this level, they're invited to A, B, C, D, and E. But then what happens when they're there? And it's not just the gift officer who's managing them there. Have they met the new dean? And so having those active stewardship plans, because you hope you go through solicitation to stewardship, which is right back into cultivation. And so it's, I do think it's an art. I think there's science to it, but I almost think there's more art to that than there is to solicitation.
Yeah, I share your point of view on that. And I think that especially given all of the change that we've experienced around COVID and a lot of the ways that we traditionally did do stewardship, the in-person gala or the award ceremony or some of the physical events that would often honor those donors. We're seeing lots of innovation happen right now to think about how can we create a more digital and consistent ongoing stewardship experience, so that we don't just kind of put them in the stewardship bucket, compartmentalize the donors over there in the absence of really continuing to engage them in what could be a future, even larger opportunity.
I agree. And I do think all of our events teams and gift officers have gotten really creative. But it's sometimes the simple things as well that are different from, a scholarship recipient saying thank you because they've written a thank you note. But what if it's, someone that's also just in the business school, a student that you happen to see that's done something cool that, you get a short little video up, or sending those articles, just thought you'd like to see this. Have you seen this video that was created for, I did not know. I hope that other listeners did know that there's a first generation college day, a day that we celebrate first generation college students. UNC Charlotte has a very large population of first generation college students, but once that was that video was created for social media, I took the opportunity to send it to most everyone in my portfolio to say, gosh, this is our why. Even if they weren't a scholarship donor, but they care about UNC Charlotte, and that's who we are. So making sure that those things, those stewardship pieces, had to be intentional.
I couldn't agree more. Do you know when that first gen day is? I'm not too familiar with it.
So I could tell it just happened in November sometime.
Wow. Okay, great.
We can look up the exact date. I don't think we made it up, but there was a big celebration of, so it was sometime in November. It was our communications team that did that, and they sent around some, hey, we want to do a video of some first generation, college students and alums. It was a sweet little thing. I think they took some students and they thought they were being interviewed for, I don't know, some program within their college, and they put them in front of a camera and they read a note from their mom and dad. And, they cried as they were reading from their mom and dad, and then they had pictures of the family. It was really sweet. And, talked about them doing something that they couldn't do, and
wow.
And it was very powerful. And I was like, gosh, I had no idea that day existed, and we should have known as fundraisers. It was our communications team, but we'll know next year.
Beth, if you have a copy of that video or a link to the video, I'd love to include it in the show notes if it's at all public. Sounds pretty high impact for sure.
I will
You've said in the past that you think as a sector, we are very slow to ask for impactful gifts. What do you mean by that?
I think sometimes we're rigid in you've made a gift, so then I move you to the next person, and I call and meet with you for, say thank you. And then I call and meet with you, and then I meet again to figure out what you might be interested in, but you've said it. So I want to make sure that you've met the dean. And I just feel like we're slow to get to this is what I want to do. I think sometimes we feel like we have to follow the process that we've prescribed, and we give ourselves enough flexibility to pick up on the cues that the donor is saying or giving you, and feel like you can make next ask. I just had a day. When I moved to UNC Charlotte 2 years ago, I was the benefactor of closing a gift that someone had already set up. For $2.5 million. That was really nice. But the first time I met with the donor in person, by touring, I'm like, I can tell that there's more interest, and I can tell what the interest is, and it's a little different than this. And then I very quickly asked for an $8 million. They gave us $10 million within a year. Who would really close a 2.5 and then ask again? But it was apparent to me. And so just bringing up that conversation, hey, John, I just wanted to follow up on something that you said when we were here on campus. And I wanted you to know, we like, I know that you aren't motivated by having your name on something. However, let me tell you why that's important to us and why it inspires others and why it helps. And I just think we would have said they are moving into stewardship, and we're going to do A, B, C, and D before we move them to the next bucket. And that's
So do you have any? How do you? Because I think what you're saying is don't be shy, right? We have big problems that need to be solved, right? These philanthropists want to solve problems, and if there's an opportunity to do more sooner, we shouldn't be shy. But there's a fine line between that and being too pushy, too aggressive, et cetera. Do you have specific sentences or phrases that you'll use to just test the waters without putting them too on the spot? Maybe role play with me a little bit of what that conversation might look like so quickly after a 7-figure gift.
Yeah, well, I haven't really thought of that. No one's asked me, what are the phrases that you use, even though when we're talking, when we're sitting in strategy sessions. But it might be, Brent, how do you feel about what we've just done? Are we making the impact that you wanted to make? Let us tell you, and I don't shy away from, this is incredible. This is, what you've done is, so meaningful to us. And no, I want you to know that we're going to continue to work on this problem. We're going to continue to go out and get more scholarships. We're not, this isn't all that we need. We need more. Would you be willing to help us? Can we use your story to inspire others? Would you maybe help? Which lets them know, right? This isn't done. This isn't it. I made a difference, and I did. And often, you hope that people are giving, that you've had great conversations and they're giving what they can or what they want to do. And it doesn't always happen that they'll give that quickly again. But I think you have to, I don't think we always make the assumption that you're going to be a lifetime donor, right? So the next gift is coming, you hope, whether it's in 1 year or 5 years. So if we're keeping them as their lifetime donor, they're going to give again. This is not their last gift. I have found that with a lot of our team members, we talk about playing gift as the ultimate gift. Well, sometimes we think that that's the last gift. Well, if they've made that gift, that's the ultimate gift. Why wouldn't they want to continue to give during their lifetime and see it? But I found that a lot of our plans and a lot of our things kind of sometimes sort of they went into this permanent stewardship sort of mindset because it made that, 2 million, that 7-figure or high 6-figure planned gift. Well,
right. What a signal of capacity and affinity, and just letting it sit there. They might have made that commitment 7 years ago, right? 12 years ago. I mean, think about how different the world is today. Think about how different the stock market is, right? Think about retirement account balances. There's so many factors, real estate, asset growth.
Inheritance.
They could be in a totally different context. And if nobody's sort of really challenging them to think bigger, to understand new ways to, make an even bigger impact, especially if they created the will or the bequest or whatever at the age of 65, now they're 75, they still might have 15 or 20 years left. And so that's such a long time.
And I am not suggesting that there aren't people who've made an ultimate gift and that everybody you can ask the next year. But I do think we have to, this isn't the last gift you've made to me. So it's okay to still provide them with opportunities to give or to spark their interest. And I'm sure that everyone does. But, when you use someone who's just made a major gift to thank someone else who just made a major gift and not being shy about that inspires others. And well, their gift might have been a little bit bigger and gosh, well, okay. Like to do, or using someone that has the potential to make that size of gift, but hasn't yet made it, to be in that stewardship of that donor. It often raises their sights. And, I guess that's, I don't know if they're phrases or I think there are all sorts of cues from donors that you can take, but I think it's just always thinking what's next.
You've also commented, I just see this recurring theme in our conversations just around pace, around speed, around assertiveness. And you've said in the past, or one of the expressions you use with your team is that our industry, the advancement sector, or maybe broader nonprofit fundraising sector, is blockbuster, but our donors are on Netflix. And why do you say that? And frankly, where do you develop that perspective? Because let's be honest, you've kind of grown up in this industry. So what is it that has inspired you to look outside of the sector for inspiration?
Yeah, so I do think I I certainly have grown up in development, but I have found myself in positions where with great opportunity and ability to grow, but not yet, I've been able to put together the team to have that. So I think I've always had to think differently. But when I think about Netflix, it's not just that I do think a blockbuster is just old and sometimes higher ed is just slow. And, especially when you're in a state system and I might want to change technologies or I might want to do something. I have to go through an RFP and it's just the wheels of mission of just what you have to do. And I think, we're now working particularly with our younger donors who have grown up with information at their fingertips and they turn on Netflix and I just finished a great show. And what do they say? Well, you might like this. So they're intuitively saying, and we laugh that I just thought about a pair of shoes, and by gosh, I pick up I pick up my social media and there are those shoes. Somehow they know. There's technology. People know what we're interested in. And I feel like it's with donors the same way. It's not, we might have always made notes of, oh, they're allergic to seafood. And so don't send them this or do, but we haven't always, we probably thought it was at one point, I'll use a phrase that my children use, and it would have been creepy to say, oh gosh, I know your favorite wine is this, or your I don't know, your granddaughter's now playing lacrosse at this college and say, well, I'm going to do something about our lacrosse team. Just how do we use that to know that your donor's interested? And again, I'll go back to, I may be friends. I really do think I have great friends that are our donors, and over a lifetime of being in this, certainly have grown to have great friendships, but they didn't start because they wanted to be a friend. They know why we're calling them. And so I feel like it's our job to say, hey, I know you like this. I know you have an interest in this. Would you like to see this? Or I thought you might like to see this because of this. And how do you use that? How do we get people to think that way? How do you get your gift officers to think that way?
Yeah, I think creepy is a sort of cousin of highly personalized, and yes. It can be creepy or it can be really well personalized. And I think one thing that is for sure is when you dig through decades of contact reports about our donors, we've always tried to dig and learn information and, word of mouth sharing about certain people. So there's always been some form of intelligence about our donors. It's just become much more automated with the growth of digital channels. And even in your example of the first gen access conversation, right? How do we share that kind of content, track who responds, qualify those prospects, and then have a really clear sense that they might be interested in first gen impact? Doesn't mean that they're going to want to fund it immediately, but we'd be crazy not to at least recognize, hey, my understanding, Beth, is that you have become aware of some of our work around the first gen space, or that might be of interest to you. Would you like to learn more? And just being able to sort of narrow that broad discovery process to hone in on something that there's apparent interest in is an advantage for the institution, but it's also good for the donor, or it certainly can be.
I know, and I think that social media is, while we can say all of the terrible things that people might say about it, for us in our business, it is a great tool. And you can discover a lot about what people like and dislike and do just from their social media. And I think it's respectful to use it. I don't think it's creepy, but I think it does speed up what would have been a longer process in the past. I know more that I would have had to have met with somebody several times to find out.
Absolutely. And look, we only have so much time in the day, right? And part of your job as a leader is to be as efficient as you can with your resources. And if you can get a signal of interest or capacity or affinity from a digital channel that allows you to further refine your pool, because the reality is you can't get to everyone, right, in a fully personalized way. You can only get to some. And if the data can help point you and your team in the right direction, that's in everybody's interest. That's going to allow you to help the students more quickly. It's going to allow you to support the deans more efficiently. And so there really is, I think, almost a responsibility to use that sort of information to make sure you're not wasting your limited resources in a less analytical capacity. I'm biased, but that's my view.
I agree with you, and do think that it's just time to innovate. And every industry reaches that time, and hopefully you're always evolving, but I do think it's higher ed is certainly innovating. So I think it's time for us to do it.
So what are you excited about in the advancement space? When you think about innovation this year, next year, obviously there's external forces that have caused tremendous innovation, right? We've seen such an adoption of technology, not just Zoom, but many others as well over the last year. Young people, old people, domestic, global, you name it, we're all now a Zoom link away. that has implications. But what are other themes that you're excited about when you think about 2021? And, I just was listening to CNBC this morning, and they were saying that by May or June, things might actually be like back to normal, knock on wood. That seems so far from where we are at this moment in early December. But let's just say that they are kind of quote unquote back to normal next year. What does that mean for advancement? Do we just go back to normal, or do we continue to innovate?
Yeah, I don't think, look, I'm the first that wants to be back to normal, and I do hope we are, that we're out traveling and gathering together. And I do think there's as many creative things as we have. Nothing beats kind of being face to face with someone. But I do think that a lot of this virtual world is going to stick around. I do think that, and even if it's just, I can meet more often with a donor virtually to do something, or it's just that I think it's a retraining of us as development officers. I don't have to be face to face with someone to have a meaningful conversation. I can pick up the phone and call. I can send them email. There is digital information that I can, whether that's video or whatever else it is, I can move the relationship along without being face to face. And I think that will, back to my term of kind of speeding things up, I think that will. I also think the concept of digital gift officers, while it was here before the pandemic hit, it was certainly happening. I think it has made people realize, oh, wow. So I now can visualize how that works, because I've had to do it. And before, I think people sometimes in our positions, it's been a long time since they were in the trenches doing things. And I challenged our team the other day. We had to do a bunch of discovery calls, and and I participated in. We had a little challenge. Let's take these unknown 50 donors and everybody take a certain number, and let's see how many you can get in touch with in this period of time. And I had this moment of, oh God, it has been a long time since I had to do this. Let's hope I can do it. So I think that there's part of what we've experienced is going to stick around. And I think that's going to be very helpful to us. I think it's also trained, right? It's not just us, all of our donors are doing the same thing. So they get it now too. So that's good for us. I'm also excited about, I think we've talked about this before, but prospect strategy and research. I feel like that is a group that discipline is really evolving as well. It's no longer just creating a profile. I give you 5 names, you create these 1-page profiles, send them back to me a week later or 3 days later or whatever it is. Or they go through the same wealth screening process to put somebody in a portfolio and do some research. I feel like there's more information for them as well that they can react to and probably have to react to faster. So I think they're changing is exciting. I think stewardship is changing because the donor has changed, because they've grown up with immediate results. And we've talked so much about that and what that generation wants to see, but it has forced us to think differently and to be different. And I think we're just scratching the surface, or at least I know that we are. And what that means. So I can see that transforming as we speak as well, which I think all of that makes a major gift officer somewhat, it certainly changed the way they do work, but I think we're going to have greater success because you're going to get people that you're talking to that are really primed for, that have had a different experience with your university, with your organization. So that's pretty cool to think about what that's going to mean and look like. I think numbers are going to change. The old adage of, gosh, well, if you have a major gift officer that's raising $1 million, check the box, that's good. I don't think that's good anymore. I mean, it could be for certain ones, but I think there's a lot of analysis that's changed. So it's all pretty exciting.
Yeah. No doubt. I mean, I think just your comment around the research space, we think of prospect research historically having been quite reactive, not proactive. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing such an opportunity to take some of the commodity work that they had been accountable for in the past, right? Maintaining data or doing the wealth screen. I mean, so much of that can be automated through technology that can really free up that that group to be much more proactive and strategic. We talk a lot. I mean, you mentioned your communications colleagues. How do we have a prospect development group that sits in between gift officers and communications so that when the story is told, when the tears are being shed, that generates emotion and data that we can then use to work into our broader process to make sure that gift officers are quickly getting proactive insights, not just reactive, here's the bio. So I'm with you on that big time. And certainly when we look at the digital gift officer space, some of the donor experience work that we've been doing, just a tremendous opportunity right now to take this moment in the pandemic and really make lemonade and try to help reshape our org chart going forward to be more efficient, to cover more of the giving pyramid, but ultimately to do so in pursuit of a better donor experience, deeper into the pyramid. And so it is an exciting time. I mean, it's an exhausting time. I think we're all tired, but at the same time, like we can't just hope for things to go back to normal. And I think we can land in a hybrid zone where we do get some of those really rich in-person experiences, and we're all ready for hugs and handshakes. But at the same time, we'd be remiss if we weren't thinking about the fact that we can now reach literally everyone in our community, old, young, rich, poor, you name it, domestic, global, through this and other technology. And we would be really remiss not to continue to attack that as things hopefully improve here in the coming months.
Could not agree with you more. There are lots of things, and I will tell you, we engaged with you all in a LinkedIn research space to look at our database and tell us job changes. And, we've been through, I think, just one iteration of that. And already we're like, are you kidding me? I didn't know that. Are you kidding me? We've got somebody that's a CEO of this company and we didn't even know it. And the wealth screening clearly is wrong, on where so they're already in that first iteration. Some great surprises to us. And I love that technology that, you can communicate through LinkedIn with people and start your engagement there. And it used to be that it was because you called them or you sent an email. And
I remember getting a list of lost alumni, and you spend 10 minutes, they're all on LinkedIn. They're not lost. They know exactly where they are. And it's not their responsibility that we don't know where they are. And that's part of the catalyst for us to move in this sort of career movement, career monitoring,
that is
initiative that we've launched. But it can't just be another data append service. Like, this sector does not need another data append. We need an opportunity to aggregate the data, to identify what really matters, and then take action, right? Then go from, hey, these are people who just got promoted. These are the top 10 that we would be crazy to not congratulate, engage, interview, have the dean congratulate them, get them connected to the president. Like, it's so there, hidden in plain sight. And that's where we are spending a lot of time thinking. And that's part of it is the data, but then part of it is what is our process to actually act on the data, which has not always been clear, I think, in the sector.
It hasn't. And it's, what do we do with it? Now we have it. What do we do with it? And
you could do a lot of things. Just make sure there's something, not just
right?
Great news. We did the data append. We updated the companies. Let's go on to the next project. It's like, no, now that we did that, we have so much more insight that could help us. Major giving, discovery, annual giving, matching gifts. There's so much potential. And so I think that's where we're really excited is I feel like that data stuff that used to be so hard over the last couple of years, it's still challenging, but it has become so much more straightforward. Now, operationalizing and executing, creating new roles and structures, we can't do that, right? That's what you and your colleagues and peers in the sector need to do. We can help brainstorm and collaborate on it because the data is making new things possible. And so even stewarding people as they get promoted, that's not been a systematic process for most advancement shops. Yet, so many times when people get promoted, they can trace that promotion back to their college experience or a mentor or that early job that they got. And we just feel like there's so much potential there in 2021 and beyond.
We could not agree more. And just looking at my file today, I was like, oh gosh, okay. Excited about the opportunity that's there. So we are evolving, we are innovating, but we can't, I can't wait on a written process that's going to take 6 months for review to do this. Like, we need it now. This data is fresh. It's here. What are we doing? And while we're doing it, we can write the process for what's happening next time.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So.
Well, look, you are, we're in the midst of what has been a challenging time. There have been a lot of hiring freezes around the sector, but you're also at one of the fastest growing institutions in the country. And so on one hand, student growth, enrollment growth has been really significant. I think the fastest growing in the system and one of the faster growing institutions in the country. How do you balance kind of that kind of growth with having to really take a pause from a team building and growth perspective? And where are you? Is there a hiring thaw around the corner?
Well, I certainly hope so. UNC Charlotte has been the beneficiary of huge enrollment growth and sustained enrollment growth. So as a part of a state system, we probably were hurt less than some of our counterparts because enrollment, funding certainly helps us. I think we'll all experience, probably everyone, but really state universities will experience our kind of budget crunch next year. I am excited about some of the things we've learned, that we don't have to travel everywhere we've had to go. That might, that budget might still remain small. We are right now looking at, are there, instead of cutting back, are there ways to reimagine the roles that we have to better utilize someone's strengths, to have a better return on investment? We will be just like, everyone else. We finished a campaign, we'll be moving into one. So we are planning, what are we going to need in 3 years? And what are the positions that we can start, working towards now? I'm hopeful that this is a short-lived kind of hold tight. I don't see us, posting 10s and 20s and, hundreds of jobs right now, but I think we're preparing for that will come. And so what does that look like? And how do we, and a lot of, what we are doing remotely and digitally and using technology, can we continue to do more of that? And also the technology, I think, is showing what the potential is. So how do we start to show to our administrators, we've achieved this, but here's what we're leaving on the table. And with this investment, we could get X. And I think we've always kept metrics and how we performed, but I don't think we've always shown potential and make it a decision.
Yeah, and I think that's where, technology really can help. And it's not just the software, but the underlying data, as we've been discussing. If you're running assessments or feasibility studies off of incredibly inaccurate career data, well, that's going to undersell the potential. And so I think the more that we can improve the underlying data asset, the more clearly we can really be confident in what the potential is, which then informs a hiring plan, so that hopefully as you are going to the president or the board someday, it's really rooted in data that we've not been able to, have at our disposal in the past, that goes way beyond a traditional feasibility study, so that we don't undersell the potential.
Yeah, and I think it's, we've already started with, here's what's next. I mean, we may not be able to fund this position today, but we need it soon to meet this objective of this sort of campaign. Here's what we need in 3 years, in 2 years. We know it. Here's what they would be doing. So we're already talking about it, so that's understood. And, at some point it's, how do we find the money for this? But in the meantime, being good stewards of our resources, continuing to show progress and return on that. And I do think that I think a lot of university presidents and others went into this space, or into this time, this pandemic, thinking, oh gosh, this is going to be terrible, and fundraising numbers are going to be terrible. And, while they're maybe not where we wanted them to be or where we anticipated in a normal time, they haven't been terrible. I mean, it hasn't been, for us at least.
And look, I think, that's where there's a lot of talk right now about the recovery and this comment around a K-shaped recovery. And the reality is the stock market is at an all-time high. The savings rate has been through the roof. discretionary purchases, swimming pools, home improvement. People are spending money. And so I think there's this juxtaposition, especially in the college space where you're on campuses, you've been dealing with some of the most complicated logistical, operational situations in the world. At the same time, many of your donors are doing better than ever. And it's hard to accept that and reconcile the pain that we see in the news and the Main Street pain, which is real, with the reality that many people are doing incredibly well. And therefore, we need to be aggressive because we've got problems that need to be solved. They are hidden, and they are very clear. And so let's be aggressive. And also, our donors aren't traveling; they have more time. There are fewer excuses about why they can't together. We don't need to spend 2 weeks planning a visit to go see them. So I do feel like there are a lot of really positive aspects here. But I know that we all went through this period of just being a little gun shy to really make those bold asks in the early part of the pandemic, but hopefully we're coming out of that, recognizing that a lot of folks are doing really well right now.
Well, and you started off with it's Giving Tuesday, even though someone might not hear this for weeks. So at whatever time it is, it's 4:00 now, and I haven't gotten a report in a couple of hours. We have more than doubled what we did in last year's Giving Tuesday this year. And we've more than doubled in gifts, in new donors, and in our live bonds and side bonds. And it's because, we thought about it differently. We're doing it. And I think, well, that's not a major, that's not going to be $2 million for us. But to know that you could do that in this time I think it's reflective of everything else.
Yeah. E-commerce through the roof. We just had Cyber Monday through the roof. There's no reason that if people are going to be making discretionary e-commerce purchases, that they can't be making discretionary philanthropic investments as well. And so I think part of the opportunity, Beth, for you, for your colleagues, and certainly this is a big area of focus for us at Evertrue, is how do we go from a day like Giving Tuesday and really turn that into the first step in the journey? Not that it's the end, it's the beginning, because there are going to be a bunch of people who donate today who've never donated before, or maybe it's been a few years since they've donated. How do we use the same approach to the data? Think about that funnel approach, which is, of those 1,000 donors, who are the top 100 that aren't on our radar that we really need to now take this as a moment so that their stewardship and experience the next month, 2 months, 3 months, 5 months from now is different and leveled up relative to the masses. And just being okay, acknowledging we cannot treat everyone the same. Even though we'd love to, if we had unlimited resources, we can't. But how do we look at Giving Tuesday so that maybe 6 months or a year from now, you could actually say we did end up raising $2 million. It wasn't all that day. That day gave us the names. But because of the follow-up plan, the data, the analytics, new approaches to prospect development, we were actually able to then go on to secure hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars from people who otherwise would have not surfaced, right? That's on us, that's on you. I'm really excited for that challenge.
We are too. And I do think I think Giving Tuesday for us was a prime example of just using technology, looking through the lens of where we are through the pandemic, what people understand about universities and need. And, we do our food pantry on Giving Tuesday, and we've always had a corporate food drive, and we're like, gosh, what do we do? Nobody's at work. So we did a virtual food drive. We will never do we will do it virtually. That was so easy. Everyone shops on Amazon anyway. You create a wish list on Amazon and everybody just clicks on,
Incredible.
There are things that's incredible. So it's
no
been
doubt
a great experience. So
well, Beth,
appreciate
Beth,
you.
it's been great learning more. No, it's been great learning more about your journey and what you're excited about, your frustrations as well. If people want to stay in touch with you, what's the best way? I know you're on LinkedIn. Do you have anything else you'd recommend for our audience?
So I am on LinkedIn. I'm always open to emails. And so on our website at uncc.edu, it not only has my email address, it also has my cell phone. I'm always open to anyone calling, love to share ideas and hear from others. So I'm always happy to help when I can.
Excellent. Well, with that, Beth, we're going to wrap up today's show, but thank you so much. Happy Giving Tuesday. I hope it is the start of a great conclusion to this this challenging year as you see the numbers moving at your shop. But we're really grateful to be on the journey together. Wish you and your team the best. Brent, signing off from Oceanside. Take care.
Thank you.